All right, good. So let's go ahead and jump into our conversation here. So Jeremy, who has been a speaker in the past, as has Art, we had a great, kind of prep conversation about what's happening out there with the new paradigm of selling and buying. And so it's going to be a very lively conversation this morning. As always, as we always talk about, if you have questions, please, we want to make this a very engaging, discussion this morning versus just a monologue from us. So any questions that you have about your clients, what you're seeing out there, new ideas that you're seeing, new strategies, throw it up into the chat there, and then we'll address those questions as we move on. So I'll let with that. All right, so Jeremy, do you want to start and talk about, so now is your company, is it called Endia? Is that the new name? Is that correct?
No, sorry for the confusion there. So it's actually,
okay, sorry.
No, it's okay.
AnnexQ on your LinkedIn profile, so yeah.
Yeah, no. So Annex Performance Solutions is a company I started back in 2012, created the software company, which is AnnexQ, and Endia is a company that I work for as a director of sales. So.
Okay, gotcha. It's just one of many hats that you're wearing. Okay.
Yes,
good.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, do you want to tell us about AnnexQ and kind of what you're seeing out there? First of all, what you do as a company, but also just, an overview of kind of what you're seeing among your customers and what's changed.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks for having me as your guest. I really appreciate it. And I love this group. I see a lot of familiar faces, so it's great seeing everybody this morning. But yeah, AnnexQ. So we created a cloud solution specifically for business to business sales. Right. So what we're doing essentially is helping both sellers and buyers to reduce the sales cycle time by reducing the amount of meetings that are necessary and reducing the time in between those meetings. What do I mean by that? I mean, when you're in a sales cycle where there are multiple decision makers, typically there's going to be multiple departments, multiple meetings, and then of course people on multiple time zones, right? And trying to sync up in Zoom or in person for that matter, pre-COVID and potentially post-COVID, that obviously can be a challenge. So this solution is exclusive between the buyer and the seller, where they can asynchronously communicate by storing anything from recorded Zoom meetings such as this to PowerPoint presentations, marketing material, and it's conducive in the matter of that is conducive with the sales cycle. So in other words, everybody gets to see where they've been in the process, what the next steps are, and as other stakeholders come in, they can follow those steps as opposed to having to start over to get people going. And so, what I've seen, and this idea came up, before COVID, but with the challenges that we've faced since COVID, which has amplified, has been very helpful. And so what I'm seeing in my industry, being specifically in tech sales, is, it's funny how a pandemic would create this, but people are starting to see that working digitally and communicating online can be as effective, and in some cases more effective than the way we used to do it in person from a sales standpoint, right? There's the cost of acquisition is a lot less because there's no travel and time taken away and hotels and things like that. At the same time, you can have more meetings in a given day, right? I mean, I'm preaching to the choir. You probably have another meeting right after this meeting, right? I mean, back to back, you don't have to, do all your prep and then drive and wait in the lobby. So you can have 4 to 5 meetings a day as opposed to one or two. So what I'm seeing and talking to sales leaders, VPs of sales and directors of sales, I'm seeing that, and it does vary by industry, but for the most part, a lot of the people that I'm talking to, they foresee continuing this trend. What I mean by that is keeping their salespeople remote, working from home, not only because they've seen it being as effective, not more effective, but they're realizing they can get talent from outside of their geographical area. So those are some of the key trends that I'm seeing.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Jeremy. That's a perfect kind of lead into the whole conversation. We'll circle back around to that because I'm curious to kind of hear your thoughts about how things have changed, because you started the company formally before COVID, right?
Right.
So I'm kind of curious, and maybe you can jump into this now, but I'm curious about if your strategy has changed over the last 14 months versus what you kind of were projecting and expecting, when you started it pre-COVID.
Yeah, strategies definitely changed because of the way we're prospecting and engaging with customers, but our conversations have definitely changed. And again, because people are no longer, or at least very much less, meeting in person, it's the conversations tend to be around, well, what are other companies doing, right? Because we're at a point where people didn't know what was the best route to go. And even prior to this meeting, we kind of had a quick conversation about hybrid model, remote, and so forth. So the main difference are the conversations that I'm having with the sales leaders that are kind of wondering, hey, what's everybody else doing and what's working, what's not?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I think, the strategies that were out there were all, for the most part, pretty similar, depending upon, kind of if you are B2B, B2C, pre-COVID. And now everything has been turned, on its ear, right? And so everybody's kind of saying, hey, what are you doing? What are you doing? Because I'm trying to figure out the right formula based on what's happened with my customer base and also kind of my suppliers. So it's a squeeze kind of from both sides. Okay, well, we'll definitely circle back around to that, Jeremy. Thank you for that intro. That's perfect.
Yeah.
Art, do you want to tell us about kind of Twimbit and your role out there also?
Sure, I'd be happy to, Ken, and thanks for inviting me for this. So hello, everyone. My name is Art Robbins, and I'm currently working with a relatively new company called Twimbit. Twimbit's been around for 3 years, and it's a born digital market research and consulting company. Basically, we have developed a new platform for creating and distributing content, related to business. And it's all forms of research. It's vertical industry, it's horizontal topics. And, we're basically covering, the hottest areas in the world that are affecting the world right now. And I think what's interesting is, Ken, you were asking about, well, how has business changed? Have your strategies changed? Pre and post COVID. I think we've seen a lot of the interest lately being around some of our horizontal cross industry topics, more so than they were pre-pandemic. So companies are really interested in topics like the customer experience, employee experience, digital transformation, and really trying to understand, the best practices that are being deployed, to take advantage of the technologies out there and the changing customer demands. And, a lot of the work that we do, we create syndicated research, which is available to our subscribers. But we also do a lot of custom work for our clients. We help clients with their content marketing campaigns. The content that we develop is fact-based and research-based. So if you want something like a Super Bowl ad, you wouldn't come to us. But if you want something that's data rich on trends affecting an industry or a practice area, we can provide the fact foundation to create some very compelling creative content. And I think what's interesting is we were talking earlier about, well, when are things going to get back to normal? When are things going to get back to the way they were? So this isn't my opinion. This is our research. It's not. We're in a new normal, and we're going to stay in a new normal, and that new normal isn't going to be static. It's going to be evolving. So what I think we've all experienced this past year is the pendulum has swung in one dramatic direction. I mean, everything became virtual. Everything became remote. And now that we're coming out of the pandemic, that pendulum is going to start to swing back, but it's not going to settle where it used to be. It is going to be in some hybrid state, as Ken mentioned. And the challenge for businesses is figuring out, what that new hybrid state is going to be. The right answer is some combination of virtual and physical, both in terms of servicing the customers and in terms of servicing the employees. And the companies that are creative and deliberate. I think you use the term deliberate, Ken, in sorting that out. Those are going to be the most successful companies that are going to become, market leaders and pace setters in this, post-pandemic era we're entering.
A question for you, Art, just based on, I know since you came out of some very big organizations, right, out of EY and then at Frost and Sullivan for a long time. So you've been kind of in that specialized, custom, very targeted, kind of a forward-thinking, research world for quite a while. But I'm curious about two things. A, the collection of information on behalf of your clients. Now everything is virtual. Is that easier or more difficult? But also then, I guess more importantly, the dissemination of the information, right? How do you present it? How do you package it in a way where it's relevant to your clients and to their clients also? What changes have you seen in those two areas, post-COVID?
Yeah, well, we spent a lot of time, surveying and speaking with the clients out there on how they wanted to, create content and access content and digest content. And research is very interesting because it's one of those industries that hasn't changed fundamentally in decades.
Right.
Everyone's used to going on some site. I won't mention names of the big research companies. You all know who they are. And you have a subscription. You download a report. It's a big PDF. If it's short, it's 50 pages. It's probably 100 pages in reality. And you can't do anything with it. I mean, it's just a PDF. I mean, you can't pull out a data table. You can't manipulate the data. You can't talk to the author. And I've seen many salespeople at research companies who are all excited because they got a subscription with the chief commercial officer, but the chief commercial officer doesn't want to bother looking at any of the research. He assigns an intern to say, find the answer to this question for me. So that's where the research industry is ripe for disruption. It's based, and that's one of the strategies we have is developing a platform that actually makes the consumption of research enjoyable. So we've actually looked at paradigms like the Netflix paradigm or the Spotify paradigm and say, what if there was a platform to access business content the way a consumer can access entertainment content in their home? And you think about, the things that you can do, with Netflix. It's very personalized. There's a machine learning engine under there that's actually, that actually knows you and knows your preferences. It knows what you like. It knows if something new is being distributed. Say, well, I'm going to notify Art, but I'm not going to notify Ken because Art's interested in, superheroes and Ken's interested in, in Fast and Furious. So this stuff is all curated, and it makes the experience more personalized and more relevant to the end user. And I know I've been talking about this in the context of research, but I actually think what I just said applies to just about anything. It really is about the customer experience. And how can you leverage the technology to have a more relevant, personalized experience for your customers? And I think that's both the opportunity and the challenge in the digital age, because now you have to have the technology be a representative and an enabler for your company. You can't just go to the salesperson and say, hey, get on an airplane, and start walking the halls, right? That's not going to happen. So we're in an asynchronous world where, we're beholden to the client's schedule
Mhm.
and the client's way of accessing content. And if we can tailor our experience, our customer experience, to accommodate that, we will have great relationships with the client. And then you overlay, the personal experience on top of that,
That's great. Yeah.
to sort of complete the full circle.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, and one of the things I love about this group is that there's such a variety of types of industries. Some are very legacy, traditional businesses, right, that have been around, like you said, for decades, and others are very, very new and have kind of grew up in a purely digital age. So to that point, actually, Jeremy, this is a question that came from Joe also, how do you, so when you are relying so much on the digital virtual interaction, right, communication, if you will, how do you engage in such a way with your customers that they remember you, right? And that they really, are becoming a raving fan, if you will, right? To use Joe's term. But also, how do you cut through the noise, right? Because it is easy to jump on, like you said earlier, 5 Zoom calls a day, and all 5 could be competitors for your business, right? So how do you stand out? How do you make that happen?
Yeah, exactly. And that's a good question, Joe. I appreciate that. It's so, what I found is, people are getting, a little Zoom fatigue, right? And you kind of want to disrupt the pattern a little bit. Obviously, you can't be in person. Nobody replies to voicemails or emails anymore. That's long gone. But some of the things that I've done and I've seen others do is just going a different route, but still using the same or similar platforms. So, for instance, LinkedIn, right? I'm sure everybody here is using LinkedIn more than ever, and you're probably getting overloaded with DMs in your LinkedIn that is a lot of spam looking. So number one is how do you stand out? Interact a little bit differently. Take a very highly targeted and customized approach. Don't do a copy and paste, and don't just start pitching right away. I mean, really introduce yourself and see how you can be a resource. And the only way you can do that is if you do research on that person or that company and say, hey, I noticed on your profile that this, or maybe you comment on one of their comments on LinkedIn. So it's just taking a different approach, even though you're using the same platform. A lot of people don't know this, but there's also a voice and video function within LinkedIn as well. So in a DM, instead of leaving a text DM, record a selfie video. It doesn't have to be fancy, right? These days, people would almost prefer a sort of impromptu, message. So use the video feature, use the audio feature, and you'd be surprised how much engagement you'll get just by simply doing something different than what your competitors are doing every day, which is borderline spamming, right?
Right. Yeah, very true. So I'm curious, Jeremy, to that point, are you, and this, I guess maybe it comes back to the overarching question of, really knowing your customers, but are you asking your customers outright, hey, Mr. Customer, how would you like to communicate with me? How do you want to hear from me? What's the best platform or the best, kind of strategy, if you will? Or do you have to kind of just do a lot of A/B testing, right? Try to engage with them on Clubhouse and try on LinkedIn, then try an email and just kind of see what works. I mean, how do you intuit what the right strategy is?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've never flat out asked. Maybe that's a good thing to try, right? I mean, that's a good point. I think that even if you did ask, maybe they wouldn't know. I mean, if somebody asked me, I'd probably say, whatever, just email me, right? But really, if I say email me, I'm probably not going to see it for a couple of days. But like I said, I think it's just going a different route and seeing, and like I said, the testing, right? If they're replying faster through a DM, do it that way. I have people that I communicate on a regular basis through LinkedIn DMs, and then it eventually goes to email, right? When it gets to a point where it's like you're going to need a little bit more information and things like that. And by the way, you can attach documents in LinkedIn as well, as long as they're a first connection, or if you're paying for a premium account. But nonetheless, at some point, it'll eventually go to email, then it'll eventually go to a Zoom meeting and so forth. So it's building that relationship. I always tell my clients, it's that multi-touch and taking different angles, right? At the end of the day, when you're prospecting, for instance, you just want to know that you're a real person representing a real company. You're not some bot or some automated, person. So I always say even voicemail and email, even though you may not get responses, it's just letting them know, hey, I'm a real person. When I leave voicemails, I don't expect a call back. I just say, hey, I'm going to send you an email. Feel free to reply if it's easier, or give me a call back. And most of the time, you'll see an increase in people just replying to your email saying, "Hey, got your voicemail, thanks. Check back with me next week." So it's just taking different angles. And to your point, Ken, it's a lot of testing because everybody's going to be different.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, it's funny. I think even from us on the recruiting side, depending upon the level of position that we're recruiting for, honestly, that kind of dictates how we reach out to potential candidates, right? And I hate to say this, but to some extent, it's a generational thing as well. If we're going after somebody that honestly is the earlier stage of their career, first 10 years of the career, we're going to still email, but we're also going to send a text message, right? If I'm going after somebody who's got 30 years of experience, the odds are they probably use text, for personal reasons, but on the business side, it's just seen as being not professional enough. And so with them, I'm going to focus solely on a voicemail and an email. So it's challenging. I mean, I don't think I ever used a text to reach out to a candidate, 2 years ago, but these days I do it quite often. It is, and I'm amazed at how often I get a response. I have to explain in my text who I am, so they know it's not some random person just texting them. But I'm amazed at how that new, quote unquote new, kind of platform for connectivity is working very well, depending upon who the person is I'm reaching out to. So back to the point of knowing your audience, right? Whether it's a customer or in our case a candidate as well.
Yeah, very good point.
Well, Ken, I mean, building on that, I mean, I think this is the challenge for all marketers is how to effectively distribute content. I mean, at the end of the day, it's the content that's king. It's the content that enables this. And I agree, with the points that you need a multi-touch strategy. You need to support, multi-media, multi platforms. And what we try to do is to focus. Like if we're doing a campaign for a client, we'll focus on creating an anchor piece of content. And maybe it's a white paper. It's like we're working with a tech company that wants to sell to the healthcare industry. Well, what are the technology challenges that healthcare companies are facing? There's regulatory challenges, there's data privacy challenges, there's platform challenges, et cetera, et cetera. So we might create one anchor piece of content and then bring our creative team together to say, well, what other types of content now can we derive from that? Like we have some Instagram friendly assets that we create. We have to call them Instabits. And it's very cool. It's like, it's very visual, not text heavy. You could just swipe through like 10 slides. You get the key takeaways. You don't have to read a 50-page white paper. Someone wants to read the white paper, they can. We might create a video interview or video reels or blogs. So, from one anchor piece of content, you could potentially create, a dozen derivative assets in all different media formats. And now you can, working with your marketing team, construct a very interesting marketing campaign that could span over a month or a few weeks, and you don't have the same repetitive, boring, hey, here's the fourth time I'm sending you this white paper, please download it. We can get away from all that. And we're finding that's very effective, and it's more engaging, to the new way that people want to absorb contents. And at the end of the day, the message resonates, because the end user has seen that message in a number of different forms of content that reinforce it.
Yeah, I think, I mean, for us, I know too, it's a matter of just kind of thinking differently, right? We've had a discussion several times, Elaine and Vicky and I, our marketing team, about, should we have an Instagram page? Should we look into Clubhouse, those kinds of things? And honestly, it's easier to just do what we've always done. It's easier to say, no, we've always used LinkedIn, we've always used, whatever it is, and it's been in our website, it's just fine. But to really kind of think outside the box and force yourself to say, all right, so maybe a smaller bite-sized piece of our content, our infographic or a quote here or graphic there, might make sense to put on Instagram. Whether or not it's going to bring in more business, who knows? But to your point, Art, it's definitely going to get our message out on other platforms and allow people to see it in more ways than one, and more kind of context than just the same old, same old.
Right. And, just to follow through on that, I mean, you do need to have some sort of analytics attached to this, where you can monitor the effectiveness, because, Instagram might turn out to be a great platform for our business. It may not be for your business,
Right.
So that's where the analytic, I mean, the more you can base your decisions on facts, that's going to lead to, the ROI we're ultimately trying to achieve here.
Jeremy, I'm curious with your business. So kind of back to our focus around kind of our customers have changed how they're buying. How do you kind of chunk out your time? How do you manage your time in terms of all these different platforms? How do you decide in a given week how much time to spend on Clubhouse versus whatever it might be, right?
Yeah, that's a good point. It kind of goes back to tracking where you're getting your leads and where you're getting your business, and there's going to be a lot of experimenting. For me, I'll focus more on what's working. There was a time where I was doing, and some of you know this, where I was doing monthly webinars. What I started to notice is over time, I was getting less and less attendees, and that's when I shifted over to Clubhouse and started seeing more and more. And then I started doing a consistent weekly forum on Clubhouse. So I usually try to chunk it, like I said, whatever is working and where I'm seeing momentum is where I'm going to focus more. And but I also don't let go completely of what might not be working as much, because that's I heard somewhere, you're not going to get where you want to be by doing the same things that you do that got you here. So it's important to be able to try to stay ahead and know what's out there. And I may even be making a shift soon. I mean, Clubhouse, for instance, there was a lot of hype on it. I mean, I read an article where statistics showed that there was a significant spike in new users back in February. So this is after the new year. And that's when I was getting a lot of leads there. I've noticed a slight dip in that. And in the same article, it showed that there's been a significant drop in new users in the last couple of months. So maybe it was just a kind of a fad. Who knows? We'll see. But yeah, I spend my time based on what's working, but I also try to automate as much as possible so that I'm not spending too much time on things that I don't need to. For instance, I think somebody mentioned using social media and posting on different times and different platforms and trying to test things. So I use tools like, if you've heard of Buffer or Hootsuite, I use Buffer, where you can just spend 1 hour and schedule your posts for an entire month or even just a week at certain times, certain platforms, and you do it one time, and that, and then throughout the next week or month, it's automatically generated for you. So I'm always looking for the next automation tools as well to reduce the amount of time that I spend on these things.
Yeah, exactly. Joe, another question, which I think is interesting too. What about in terms of memes, and whether it's a meme or a graphic or something unusual, funny, different? We always remember the stories from decades ago. People would, in old advertising days, right, where someone would send a box with a shoe in it, to their target customer and say, now that I've got my foot in the door, how about seeing the rest of me, right? There's all kinds of stories like that from a long time ago. But so are memes, are those kinds of things, kind of the new foot in the door approach?
Yeah, I think again, going back to your point, Ken, depending on your audience and even generationally, right? I mean, and I always tell my clients to be careful when it comes to humor, because you got to be funny, right? I mean, if you're not, then
Right.
so if you're going to use that, be careful. But I certainly think that it works with engagement. If in LinkedIn, for instance, when you do a post, you can see the analytics as to how much engagement there is. And if you notice that a certain meme has gotten more, then I would certainly start doing more of that. But there was a time where even just a photo or video would increase engagement on LinkedIn. But if you go on your homepage on LinkedIn now, I mean, everybody's posting a video, right? So again, my biggest thing is always disrupting patterns. So if a meme does that, then I certainly am all for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Jeremy, so you've been in sales roles for a number of years. That's been the bulk of your career with some big companies, ADP, mid-sized companies, kind of a nice variety. Have you changed your skill set? Do you emphasize different, kind of strength these days in terms of how you sell? compared to how you sold, let's say, pre-pandemic?
Yeah, I think that, when you're selling digitally, like in a Zoom like this, you have to be a little more animated, right? I mean, when you think about it, you have to think that these little details matter. Your background, the way your posture is, the way you talk. You have to be a little bit more animated because in the video you're smaller. Your voice may not amplify as much when you're in, as opposed to being in person. So if you notice, for me, I try to have kind of a neutral but kind of cool background. And whether it's virtual or whether it's real, I mean, I see a lot of great backgrounds if it's a real background, because it shows your personality, right? You can kind of see a little bit about your personality. But those are some of the things I've changed in terms of the way I sell, is just kind of trying to be a little bit more animated. But in terms of your selling style, it really just depends on the type of sales process that you're in. So to your point, when I was in more of an ADP high transactional, multiple deals per week sale, it's a little bit different than when you're dealing with the enterprise size companies where you're, really building relationships, connecting the dots between your organization and theirs, and even interdepartment. So it's a completely different sell. And it's important to know that even when you're hiring, and I'm sure you know this, Ken, as recruiting, is just because somebody might be successful selling in one area doesn't necessarily mean they'll be successful selling in another. Meaning if they're selling, small ticketed items and they're very successful there, it doesn't necessarily mean they'll be successful selling a big ticketed item that can take 3 to 6 months to close. So I think what's more important is understanding sales cycles and how that works.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. No, I agree completely. How about yourself, Art? Have you kind of adjusted or changed? I mean, being with a startup as well, you don't have the brand name of an EY or even a Frost & Sullivan to rely on, right? So you have to focus your efforts in a different way. So how have you kind of changed your positioning, if you will, your selling?
Yeah, well, there obviously we're trying to create brand awareness. So there's a lot more emphasis on the product and the assets. It's being flexible with the customer, giving them incentives or trials, to start to work with us. We're fortunate. I mean, being a startup, I mean, we're trying to take advantage of the things that a startup has to offer. We don't have the bureaucracy of a large firm. We don't have a lot of rigid policies or rules. We're able to attract talent that is more creative and entrepreneurial, and I think that's reflected in the content. Like if you go on the site and you see the content we're creating, it's really very compelling. I mean, it's very engaging. It's fresh, and people like that. And having I would say that the people I'm working with are far more creative than the people I work with in the big firms. And it's interesting, like when you were talking about the memes and stuff like that. I mean, I was just having a conversation with one of our founders yesterday, because we try a lot of different things. I mean, we do a lot of experimentation to see what sticks. And we just tried this campaign that featured little kids, like preschool. I don't know, maybe they're 3, 4, 5 years old. And, I looked at my LinkedIn views for that piece of content, and it was more than twice the number of views than for any other piece of content. I mean, I think, that tells me that, the world would rather look at little kids than a bunch of balding old men talking about business issues, but, maybe there's something there, maybe there's, a nugget of an ongoing campaign, because you never know what'll stick. Right. I mean, probably half the, famous TV ads, were, that, keep repeating, the creator of those ads didn't know it would have that connection, but they were smart enough to recognize the connection and stick with it.
Exactly. I remember the ice bucket challenge, which was probably what, 5 years ago. Do you guys remember that whole thing? And that just took off and went crazy, and was able to raise a lot of money for some great causes. And I remember talking to marketing leaders who were then being told by their CEO, "You've got to go out there. You have to go create something that's going to go viral." And the whole point is that you don't know what's going to go viral. You can't create that. That just happens. It snowballs. It's organic. So to your point, you have to really kind of focus on what matters most. It's that old adage of, the good news is I've got half my marketing is working very, very well. The bad news is I don't know which half, right? So you gotta find a way to track it, right? How do you figure out which half is the half that you should continue doing? So to that point, and this is a good comment from Joe too, what are the metrics? What should we be measuring, both in terms of quality and responsiveness, but also in terms of the metrics around our own sales teams, right? How do we decide which of our salespeople are doing a good job these days? Is it still just sales? Is it more than that? Is it engagement? Is it repeat customers? Jeremy, do you have any sense for that, for what you see with your clients?
Yeah, for me, and as I managed reps over the years, I think we kind of get trapped in the metrics piece, especially when it comes to final results, revenue, and number of deals closed. But for me, I've been a big believer in managing activity and measuring that, because that equals results. And you, at that point, also don't stress over what you can't control, in my opinion. I always tell people, if you think sales is high pressure, then you're just doing it wrong, right? Because you're saving everything for the last minute to close in the third quarter, fourth quarter, whatever the case may be. And most of you probably agree with me. These days, pressuring a buyer to buy, let alone buy at a certain time, will always backfire. Especially these days when they have all the information that they need accessible, and you really can't put that pressure on them. So I always say, as long as you have a full pipeline, you have people that say, I'm not ready to make a decision until 6 months from now. Well, then good. I have that person to follow up with in 4 to 5 months, or whatever the case may be. But as long as the pipeline is full and there are quality deals in there, then there's really never a reason to worry about that. I always focus on the activity, right? And measuring the process. So how many people have I presented a demo to? How many people have I, did a discovery call with? How many proposals are pending out there? Those are how you measure, in my opinion, the quality of the deals that you're working in, and what's most important to measure. Now, obviously, as a CEO of a company who's trying to meet a number for Wall Street, that might be a little different. But when I'm in the front lines, that's and as a leader, that's what I'm looking for. Is what are you doing today that you can control?
I just want to add, I agree with what you're saying, Jeremy. And it's very hard to do, because there is the pressure, to close and have revenue. But I think the challenge we're all facing now more than ever is, the people we're dealing with, they're working in companies that have gone through tremendous changes. I mean, their budgets have changed. Their business plans have changed. Some of them don't even know. Like when you ask, well, but they don't know the answer. What's your approval process? They don't know the answer anymore. And that's why these buying cycles have taken longer and are so uncertain. So I think it requires us as marketers to have this nurturing component built into our marketing processes, where we can continue to engage with the client, without pressuring them, feed their need for information along the way, and be there, very responsive when they are ready to buy. And a lot of the traditional marketing processes are not built that way. So I think it requires some re-engineering of the marketing process to accommodate that. Again, I go back to the customer experience. The more you can have an outstanding customer experience, and that starts in the first time they engage with you, the more successful you'll be. How do you create that relationship and remove the friction?
Yeah, that's a great point. Well, and a follow-on to that is that, and I know we've noticed in our business that there seems to be more decision makers than there have been in the past, Right, and it could be a function of us working with larger companies where they now have, corporate HR departments also. It's hard to know for sure, but regardless, it seems like there's more than one cook in the kitchen, right, when it comes to making a decision about using our services. So that begs the question, how do you create the right kind of content when you've got several different, decision makers? And then how do you engage all of them, right? Do you send, 3 different texts? Do you send 3 different thank you notes? Do you send 3 different gifts? Do you, invite all 3 of them to follow you on Instagram? Jeremy, do you have any insights about that, with that broadening out of decision making?
Yeah, absolutely. And going back to what I said earlier, it has to be highly targeted and highly customized to the specific buyer, depending on what their function is within the organization. If you're talking to IT, you're gonna have a different conversation with purchasing. And you're right, these days it's gonna be multiple decision makers. And it's funny because I was talking to somebody the other day and, talking about being in sales, it's like, I'm not, 10, 15 years ago when I was in sales, it's a lot different, right? Because you actually were, you kind of had to be the expert in your product solution industry. Nowadays, like I said, everybody has access to that. And a lot of times, sometimes they know more than you do about your own product in a weird way, because they have access to reviews online. They have access to, all kinds of things. So you have to connect, what I was saying was, as a salesperson today, I'm not even a salesperson. I kind of say I'm an over-glorified project manager. I have to connect the dots. I have to understand, to Art's point, sometimes you're talking to the right person, but things change. They don't know what that new process is. I don't know how to get budgets approved. That's where you have to do your due diligence and investigate. And then you find out, and you go back to that person and you say, hey, I think this might be the route to go. And you make that recommendation. My other client, they need to talk to so-and-so. Do you have access to that person? Right. And so that's where you have to be that person to take control, lead your buyer and teach them how to buy. Right. So I always tell people, you got to teach your buyer how to buy, because they need the product, they want it, whether it's they're going to go with you or somebody else. What makes you different is that you're teaching them and leading them in the direction that helps them make that decision faster.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, and I think, to Art's point before also, just about, kind of retraining people, and to your point as well about teaching your buyer how to buy, it takes a different mindset and a willingness to make a change also. Even for us, for example, we debated for a number of years whether or not we should include our pricing for our solutions for recruiting on our website. And I've had the same discussion with other firms that are in the services sector as well. Are you taking the bat out of your own hand if you just give the pricing on your website? And we ultimately decided, actually a few months ago, because we have a second solution now also, that we were going to do it. So we now have a side-by-side matrix on our website that shows the specifics of what we offer with both of our solutions and the pricing model as well. And we figure, these days people are going to find it anyway, to your point, right, Jeremy? Because there's so much access to so much information out there. But it changes the conversation. Now we know that the leads are coming in. Chances are pretty good they've seen that. They have a good idea what we do and how we do it. Now we can get into the meat of the conversation and not focus so much on the pricing aspect.
100% agree. Sometimes I'll talk to some of my clients, especially in the SaaS world, where it's pretty common to have some sort of pricing on your website. And it's like, well, I don't want my competitors to see. I don't want them to, and it's, you don't have to disclose everything, but at least have something to where the buyer has some idea to go, okay, well, I have an idea that this, because a lot of times it's just getting rid of that sticker shock, or they think it's way more expensive than it really is. And they think, oh, it's only this much a month. I was thinking I would spend $100,000, right? So sometimes it's just using that and then getting to the conversation. And like you said, it's not that difficult for a customer to do enough research, whether it's, again, reviews, a current customer of yours they can talk to via LinkedIn. They can look at your competitors. So at the end of the day, they'll have some inclination regardless.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's also, for us, it's a little bit of self-selection. I'd rather spend my time with 5 relevant, viable leads that I know are the right fit versus talking to 10 people, all of whom are just it's way too junior of a position, or they don't have the resources or the funding that they need to pay our fee. I'd rather have a much more streamlined conversation with fewer people. Yeah. Art, what was your thought?
Yeah, no, I think this part of the conversation highlights just how important the employee is in this process. You know, when we talk about teaching the buyer how to buy, you know, our salespeople, our marketers, you know, they have to be, you know, effective communicators and representatives of the brand. And you know, one of the points I wanted to make about the overall customer experience is how important the employee experience is as a key success factor to the customer experience. And this is something that our research has really highlighted this past year, and more so than ever, you know, with remote workforces, that the companies that are investing in their employee experience and training them how to effectively engage with the customer, how to leverage the technology, how to, you know, not be impaired by working remotely instead of in the office. The companies that are, you know, making that happen and delivering an outstanding employee experience are in turn delivering the best customer experiences.
Right,
And
right.
that's a big paradigm shift for a lot of companies, you know, to
Yeah, I
think
agree.
about the employees in that regard.
Yeah, I don't know if any of you have heard of the book yet, but I'm about halfway through it. It's a new book by Hubert Jolly, who was the CEO that turned Best Buy around. Before that, he was a CEO over at EDS and also at Carlson Wagonlit. But the book is called The Heart of Business, and it's exactly that. He actually talks about how the whole idea from Milton Friedman that you know, the main purpose of a business is to generate profits, that's completely wrong. And to your point, Art, instead he says it's about, you know, engaging and supporting and equipping your employees to do what they need to do and to be engaged and in the right positions, and that will in turn bring profit, not the other way around. So it's a great book. I'm reading through it pretty quickly because it's been very intriguing. But it's called The Heart of Business. Just FYI. Great question here.
And there's a lot of research out there. You know, they talk about ESG companies. You know, companies that are environmentally, socially, and governance responsible companies, and they look at the whole ecosystem of stakeholders, not just the investors. Right? They look at employees, society, suppliers, customers. And those companies are in fact outperforming, you know, non-ESG companies consistently. So yeah,
Exactly.
definitely proof that that's the right way to approach business.
Yeah. I want to address a question that Austin has, which I think is very relevant and really interesting as well. So he's saying that he's in an organization that sells mainly to government contractors, so a pretty conservative, you know, lean, if you will, group of buyers out there, and a lot of their business, the revenue comes from existing customers. So his question is, any suggestions on how to sell internally to existing customers to actually be able to do the things that we're talking about here, but finding ways to actually get them to not only talk about doing things differently or committing resources to promotions, but actually doing it. Any insights there with customers that you're working with? Or anything?
Yeah.
Or Jeremy, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'm happy to jump in here because I've worked with,
Sure.
you know, especially in the aerospace and defense, right? It's tricky, right? Because they're very conservative. But I'd love to hear your answer as well, Art. But in my experience, those are really the toughest ones. I believe that there's always going to be a visionary within the organization. You just got to find that person. You know, find that influencer, find that champion. You're going to be spinning your wheels if you're talking to somebody who's just totally closed-minded about change. And I get that a lot of times these people may be the decision makers, but you know, we're starting to see more, you know, going back to generations, right? We're starting to see more Gen X and even millennials holding those executive roles. And if they're not holding those executive roles, they're definitely influencers in the direction the organization's moving. So I've had success just by finding who those people are. And it's not just from prospecting. I mean, yes, you can look on LinkedIn and things like that, but I don't know if your company currently does trade shows. I know with COVID, it's a challenge, but you know, I always found that whether it's trade shows or organizations, I know, I think it was Joe, you know, early in the meeting had mentioned using a Facebook page, right? If you can find where these people are hanging out, whether it's in a LinkedIn group, a Facebook group, whatever the case may be, those are the people that are visionaries and they're open to what's new, what's out there so that they can stay ahead of the curve, and getting in contact with those people. And that's where it starts. And that's where I said it goes back to that project management, connecting the dots, teaching them how to buy goes. So that would be my suggestion.
I actually meant the people in my company.
Oh, within your organization.
Not the people outside
sorry.
of my company.
Oh, okay,
my company
gotcha.
It's run by older. It's a successful business. They don't have to do a lot. Business shows up.
Yeah.
Why would we spend money on sale? Like sales and marketing is sort of like, oh yeah, that's like a thing over there. Yeah, you could, yeah, do your thing and we're excited about it or whatever. But
right.
Oh, you want money to do something? Well,
yeah, no, I've been there. I've certainly been there where it's like, hey, I'm trying to sell to my prospects and I got to sell to my own organization. Yeah. But yeah, no, I know where you're coming from. And I've had those challenges as well, where it's like, look, I think this will help. And again, it always comes back to ROI, right? It's, well, if we're going to spend this on this new technology, what's it going to bring us? And a lot of times what they're telling you is I already pay for your salesforce.com. So why would I need, you know, something else, right? And it's like, no, well, and oftentimes, a lot of times these executives, because they're not using Salesforce as an example, right? They're not using it on a daily basis the same way you are. They use it for forecasting and tracking things, but no, I need something to better engage with customers and to, you know, so yeah, that's a tough one. I'd love to hear what Ken or Art has to say, but for me, like I said, it's you become that champion now at that point for the company that's trying to bring your product in. And it's really just doing your due diligence, showing, you know, what success can potentially bring in and starting out small. Because a lot of times they think technology, they get scared of it and it's going to be a big organizational change. But if you just say, no, let me start with it, or let me just have my team start with it as somewhat of a pilot, and let's just see how it goes, you know, and then work a deal with your vendor and say, can we do a 3-month trial or have a discount where we can try it? Because I know this will work. I just need to sell it to my boss. And that's, you know, I've had, you know, it's hit or miss, right? For me, I've been able to get new technology in, and others it'll take a year or two before I get it in. So
yeah, that's a good point.
Hopefully that helps, Austin.
Yeah. And I would say my experience on my side, I want to hear Art's perspective too. For me, I would say, you know, treat your colleagues, your peers, your boss, whatever, as though they were a customer. If you were trying to get them to buy whatever, invest in your service solutions, what would you be doing to understand their pain points, right? What do they need to see as a customer? If they were a customer, what would they need to see to convince them, to compel them to at least give it a try, to Jeremy's point, right? And being internal, hopefully you have a pretty good insight into what really drives them, and then start small, as everybody is saying, but really kind of treat them as though they're a customer, even though it's a pain in the butt to have to sell to your own company internally, but still sometimes it's well worth the time investment too. Art, how about your experience?
Yeah, I mean, I'd reiterate a lot of these points. I think that it could be the hardest sell for sure. I've seen both ends of the spectrum where the internal champion has gotten senior management to move, and I've seen cases where they haven't. I totally agree with the pilot approach. You know, start small and prove it. But, in cases where the senior management is just so old school and they don't want to change, frankly, I've seen them lose good talent, because the forward-thinking marketers said, hey, I've done everything. This isn't working. I'm going to go somewhere else where they are doing new and exciting things. And, the company suffers. I mean, it's sort of a leading indicator that there could be a talent drain heading there if the company doesn't move. So that's the sad final chapter.
Yeah, exactly. At some point, if it becomes a real hindrance to you being able to do your job,
right,
because they're not going to pony up even a small amount of resources for a pilot program, then yeah, your hands are tied, and it's not always not always the right place for you also. But, you know, and I would say, again, back to my comment, I would say, and to Art's, you know, expertise, use research. You know, if you can figure out, Austin, who your biggest competitors are, talk to them, you know, reach out to them, try to network with them, whatever it might be, and get some insights about what they're doing, what you know, resources, tools they're relying on. And that might compel your internal team to say, oh, well, we're kind of behind the curve. If all of our competitors are doing this and we're not doing it, eventually it's going to come back and bite us if we don't. It can be a tough one. They really can. So.
Well, that's good perspectives. That's basically what I'm doing, is doing what I can. And what's interesting is, as a scientist by background, to me, analytics isn't a thing. That's just what I do all the time for everything. So what's interesting is, analytics to a scientist, that's not a thing. That's what you do. So just using sales analytics, since I've been in the company, like, I've got all our competitors' pricing, and that's now on a spreadsheet. That how that was never done before, I have no idea. And now management's like, oh, well, and now I'm like, well, this is where our pricing is. This is where our competitors are. How exactly do you expect me to win this sale?
Right.
And there's no answer.
You're doing what we're talking about is definitely,
yeah.
You know,
So
their customer and knowing their pain points as well. It's exactly right. All right. So wrapping up in our last couple of minutes here, Art, anything that you want to share in terms of what, you know, we as business owners, or what we can share with our clients about, you know, developing the right kind of tech stack, developing the right kind of approach when it comes to, like you talked about, enhancing that customer experience that will really help them out.
Yeah. Well, you know, I think it's always good to use a framework, you know, to evaluate customer experience. And you know, we've worked with you know, some clients in this area, and you know, we've seen clients who have evaluated, you know, like key pillars that influence the customer experience. So, you know, so some of the things there would be like, you know, leadership readiness, the use of technology, particular emphasis on cloud, particular emphasis on AI, you know, social media, the employee experience, business continuity. Those are some of the pillars. And I think if companies can, you know, develop an assessment framework and constantly test themselves against that, you know, they can create a plan, you know, to basically improve, you know, their current infrastructure and continue to monitor that, you know, as there are changes in both the customer needs and the technology opportunities that are out there.
Yeah, that's great. That's very good advice. How about yourself, Jeremy?
Yeah, there's so much out there in terms of technology, and it just really depends on your process and what your goals are. But I would just encourage everybody to look into it. I mean, things have changed, especially with this subscription model. You know, someone mentioned Netflix earlier, right? I mean, the risk now when purchasing software is more on the software provider than it is on the buyer. There was a time where you had to, you know, dating back, remember AOL and, you know, Microsoft, where you had to buy the CD and it was a one-time purchase and you had to upgrade every time. Well, now it's a small fee. Most of the time it's on a month-to-month basis. You can cancel it anytime. And I'd be happy to speak offline with anybody who has interest in some of my recommendations. But at the end of the day, you know, anything that you can do to automate and reduce the manual time spent, and even have to have additional people resources, if you can use technology, why not, right?
Yeah, and for me, I would just leave it, as I said earlier, for me, a lot of it is just asking my clients what they want to see. And honestly, it's a great way to reach out. It's a much better reason than saying, hey, do you have any more needs, right? Do you want to buy more of my services? Instead saying, you know, I'm talking to a lot of my clients to get a feel for how they're going to be buying and making buying decisions over the next 6 to 18 months. You know, what do you want to see from us that you haven't seen yet? Or what do you want to see more of? And 9 times out of 10, clients want to share that. They want to make it easier for them to work with you and vice versa. But it's a great reason to reach out. And I think kind of just doing away with all of our previous assumptions is kind of my motto going forward for the rest of this year, and try to figure out what the new paradigm is. So hopefully that's helpful. Well, Art and Jeremy, thank you guys both for a fantastic conversation. We can go on for another hour or so probably. There's so much to dive into here. Thanks for all the great questions and comments as well from the group. It was fantastic. Any follow-up that you want to reach out to Art or to Jeremy directly, please feel free. They're always very, very generous with their time, and they're obviously very easy to access through LinkedIn or what have you. So please feel free. All right, then that's great. So we'll see you next month. And actually, too, a couple of these points here. Next month, we're going to talk about what's happening in terms of employee engagement and retention and hiring and how challenging things are out there right now for a lot of companies. So we'll see you back here in July. And otherwise, enjoy the rest of your month. And thanks for joining us. Take care.